Welcome to Mr. Horror, where terror reigns supreme. Our channel is dedicated to providing the scariest stories on YouTube. Join us on a journey into the abyss and brace yourself for bone-chilling narrations that will haunt you for days. Hit that subscribe button and let the horror begin. It was a damp and dreary October night when Emily, a curious college student, stumbled upon an interesting Craigslist ad. The ad was for a vintage doll collection, which Emily thought would make a perfect addition to her creepy Halloween decorations. After exchanging a few emails with the seller, she decided to visit the address provided to examine the dolls in person. Emily's roommate, Sarah, had a bad feeling about this, but Emily dismissed her concerns, assuring her that she'd be cautious. The address led her to an old, run-down house on the outskirts of town. Tall trees and thick undergrowth surrounded the house, providing an eerie, isolated atmosphere. The front door creaked open as Emily hesitantly approached, and she stepped inside. The interior of the house was dimly lit and filled with the musty smell of old wood and decay. She called out, announcing her arrival, but received no response. Unsure of where to go, she began to explore the house. In the living room, she found a display case filled with dolls. They were dressed in tattered Victorian-era clothing, their glass eyes staring blankly back at her. Emily felt uneasy, but she couldn't help but be captivated by the dolls. As she examined them more closely, she discovered a note tucked away in the corner of the display case. The note was written in a shaky hand, and it read, "Dear buyer, I hope these dolls bring you as much joy as they have brought me. However, I must warn you, they have a history. They once belonged to a woman who practiced dark arts and used them in her rituals. Please be careful, for they may still possess a sinister energy. Sincerely, the seller." Emily felt a chill run down her spine, but she couldn't resist the temptation of owning such unique and creepy dolls. She decided to take the risk and emailed the seller, offering to buy the entire collection. The seller agreed, but warned her to handle the dolls with care. As Emily brought the dolls back to her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She felt a malevolent presence lingering, but she brushed it off as her imagination running wild. Little did she know that she had just invited a sinister force into her life, one that would soon put her and Sarah in grave danger. The following days were filled with strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, unexplained noises, and the feeling of being constantly watched. Emily and Sarah began to argue, tensions rising as they accused each other of playing pranks. But deep down, they both knew that something wasn't right and that the dolls were at the center of it all. As the days turned into weeks, the paranormal activity escalated, culminating in a terrifying encounter that would change their lives forever. In the midst of the unsettling incidents, Emily and Sarah decided to seek help from a local psychic named Madame Leclerc. The psychic agreed to visit their apartment to assess the energy surrounding the dolls. As soon as Madame Leclerc entered their home, she felt an overwhelming sense of darkness and dread. She insisted on conducting a seance to communicate with any spirits that might be connected to the dolls. As they gathered around a table, candles flickering in the dimly lit room, Madame Leclerc began to chant. The atmosphere in the room grew colder, and the doll's glass eyes seemed to come alive with a malicious glint. Suddenly, a disembodied voice echoed through the room, causing the candles to flicker violently. The voice introduced itself as the spirit of the woman who had once owned the dolls, a powerful witch named Agatha Blackwood. Agatha revealed that she had cursed the dolls to contain the spirits of her enemies, trapping them in a tortured existence for all eternity. She had hoped that the dolls would be lost forever, but Emily's curiosity had unwittingly unleashed the vengeful spirits upon herself and Sarah. Agatha's spirit, still bound to the dolls, sought to reclaim her dark power and exact her revenge upon the living. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Emily, Sarah, and Madame Leclerc devised a plan to lift the curse and free the trapped spirits. They needed to find a way to return the dolls to Agatha's burial site, where her body and the remnants of her power still resided. To locate the burial site, Madame Leclerc suggested they delve into local archives and historical records. The research led them to an abandoned cemetery deep in the heart of the woods. With trepidation, they ventured into the dark forest, armed with the cursed dolls and a ritual that Madame Leclerc believed would sever the link between Agatha and her victims. As they made their way through the twisted trees, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed, the spectral gaze of Agatha Blackwood bearing down on them. At last, they arrived at the cemetery, where they found Agatha's grave marked by a decrepit tombstone. The wind howled around them as they prepared the ritual, and the dolls seemed to twitch and squirm with a newfound vigor. Madame Leclerc instructed Emily and Sarah to place the dolls around the grave, forming a circle. As they did so, the earth beneath their feet began to tremble, and the air crackled with energy. Madame Leclerc initiated the ritual, chanting ancient words that seemed to pierce the veil between the living and the dead. The dolls convulsed, their glass eyes shattering as the trapped spirits within were finally released. But they were not yet safe. Agatha's spirit, furious at the prospect of losing her power, manifested before them, a terrifying specter bathed in shadow. As the vengeful spirit of Agatha Blackwood bore down on them, Emily, Sarah, and Madame Leclerc faced the ultimate test of their courage and determination. With their lives hanging in the balance, they would have to confront the darkness head-on and sever the connection between Agatha and her cursed dolls once and for all. With Agatha's spirit looming before them, Emily, Sarah, and Madame Leclerc stood their ground, determined to end the curse that had plagued them. The air was thick with tension as they prepared for the final confrontation. Madame Leclerc, drawing upon her years of experience, instructed Emily and Sarah to join hands and focus their energy on Agatha's spirit. Together, they formed a circle of protection, shielding themselves from the malevolent force. As they did so, Madame Leclerc began to recite an incantation that would banish Agatha's spirit back to the grave. Agatha, enraged by their defiance, unleashed a torrent of dark energy, attempting to break the circle and reclaim her power. But Emily and Sarah, empowered by their friendship and the desire to end the nightmare, held firm, their connection growing stronger with each passing moment. As Madame Leclerc continued the incantation, the dolls that once housed the trapped spirits began to crumble, their porcelain forms reduced to dust. Agatha's spirit wailed in anguish, her connection to the mortal realm weakening with each word spoken by the psychic. Finally, with a deafening scream, Agatha's spirit was dragged back into the depths of the earth, her dark power dissipating into the night. The ground beneath the grave settled, and the wind died down, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. The curse had been broken. Exhausted but triumphant, Emily, Sarah, and Madame Leclerc returned to the apartment, leaving the haunted dolls and the nightmare they had unleashed behind them. The sinister presence that had once permeated their lives was gone, replaced by a newfound sense of peace and security. As the weeks passed, life returned to normal for Emily and Sarah. They became closer than ever, their bond strengthened by the ordeal they had faced together. The experience had taught them the importance of trust, courage, and the power of friendship. One day, while cleaning out their closets, Emily came across a newspaper article detailing the mysterious disappearance of a young woman who had gone to purchase a collection of vintage dolls. The chilling story served as a stark reminder of the dark forces that had nearly claimed their lives. The girls knew that they could never forget the terrifying events that had transpired, but they also knew that they had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. They were no longer just roommates, they were survivors, bound together by the shared experience of a horror they had conquered. As Emily and Sarah moved forward with their lives, they would always remember the chilling tale of Agatha Blackwood and her sinister collection of cursed dolls. They vowed to never again seek out the unknown or indulge their curiosity in the supernatural, for they had learned that some secrets are best left buried in the shadows of the past. It was a sweltering August evening when Jake, a recent college graduate, began his search for a new roommate. He had just moved to a new city for his first post-grad job, and he needed someone to help share the rent for his two-bedroom apartment. After asking around and failing to find any suitable candidates, he turned to Craigslist to post an ad. Within hours, he received several responses, but one, in particular, caught his attention. The respondent, named Alex, seemed like the perfect fit, a young professional with a steady job and a quiet demeanor. After exchanging a few emails and conducting a brief video call, Jake decided to offer Alex the room. When Alex moved in, everything seemed to be going smoothly. They got along well, shared the chores, and maintained a respectful living situation. However, as the weeks passed, Jake began to notice some odd behavior from his new roommate. At first, it was small things, like Alex's insistence on keeping his bedroom door locked at all times, or his habit of whispering to himself late at night. But as time went on, the peculiarities escalated. Alex developed a fixation on collecting antique medical instruments, filling their living room with rusted scalpels, bone saws, and other unsettling relics. One night, after coming home from a late shift, Jake found Alex sitting in the dark, surrounded by his macabre collection. The sight was unnerving, but Jake tried to brush it off as a harmless, albeit strange, hobby. However, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more sinister going on, especially when he began to find disturbing items among Alex's belongings. One day, while searching for a missing phone charger, Jake discovered a box hidden beneath Alex's bed. Inside, he found a collection of newspaper clippings detailing a series of unsolved murders that had occurred over the past several months. Each article described a chilling scene. The victims were found with precise, surgical cuts, their bodies carefully arranged in a disturbing display. As Jake read through the articles, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. The murders had begun around the same time Alex had moved in. Terrified, Jake tried to convince himself that it was merely a coincidence and that Alex was just fascinated with the morbid stories. However, he couldn't ignore the nagging sense of dread that had settled in the pit of his stomach. As the days went on, Jake became increasingly paranoid, constantly questioning the true nature of his roommate. He struggled with the decision to confront Alex or to seek help, but he knew he couldn't ignore his suspicions any longer. What he didn't realize was that his search for the truth would lead him down a dark and dangerous path, forcing him to confront a nightmare he never could have imagined. Jake's paranoia grew with each passing day, making it difficult for him to focus on work or maintain a sense of normalcy. He decided to confide in his close friend, Laura, who was equal parts concerned and skeptical about his suspicions. After much deliberation, they agreed that Jake should try to gather more evidence before taking any drastic actions. Over the next few weeks, Jake began to discreetly monitor Alex's movements and activities, hoping to find proof that would either confirm or dispel his fears. He noticed that Alex often left the apartment late at night and didn't return until the early hours of the morning. When confronted about his nocturnal excursions, Alex claimed to be a night owl who enjoyed long walks to clear his mind. Despite his unsettling discoveries, Jake still lacked concrete evidence to connect Alex to the gruesome murders. However, his investigation took a harrowing turn when he stumbled upon a hidden room in their apartment. While searching for a misplaced document, Jake found a concealed door behind a bookshelf in Alex's room. With a racing heart and trembling hands, he pushed open the door to reveal a small, dimly lit chamber. The walls were lined with more antique medical instruments, and a large, old wooden table stood in the center of the room, covered in dried bloodstains. Horrified, Jake realized that he had uncovered Alex's macabre workshop, a place where his twisted fantasies were brought to life. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Jake knew he had to act quickly. He took photos of the secret room and brought them to Laura, who immediately urged him to contact the authorities. Together, they went to the police, presenting the photos and recounting the disturbing events that had transpired since Alex moved in. The police, taking the matter seriously, agreed to investigate Alex and advised Jake to maintain his distance from his roommate in the meantime. As the investigation unfolded, the police discovered that Alex had a dark and troubled past. His fascination with antique medical instruments and the macabre had begun at a young age, fueled by a tumultuous home life and a deep-seated obsession with power and control. The police continued to build their case against Alex, but with each passing day, Jake grew more anxious. He feared that Alex would somehow discover his involvement in the investigation and seek retribution. Unbeknownst to him, his worst fears were about to come true. One fateful night, Alex confronted Jake in their apartment, revealing that he had discovered the police investigation. His eyes burned with rage as he accused Jake of betrayal, claiming that he had trusted him as a friend and a confidant. Jake, paralyzed with fear, realized that he was trapped in the apartment with a dangerous killer, a man who had nothing left to lose. As Jake faced the reality of his dire situation, he knew he would have to summon every ounce of courage and ingenuity to escape the deadly grasp of his twisted roommate. With Alex's rage-filled eyes locked onto him, Jake's mind raced, desperately searching for a way to defuse the situation. He feigned sympathy, telling Alex that he never meant to betray him and that he only wanted to help. To his surprise, this seemed to momentarily calm Alex down, giving Jake the precious seconds he needed to devise an escape plan. While maintaining a calm demeanor, Jake inched closer to the front door, claiming he wanted to sit down and discuss everything with Alex. As he neared the door, he prepared himself to make a break for it, knowing that he might not get another opportunity. Suddenly, Jake lunged for the door and flung it open, sprinting into the dimly lit hallway. He could hear Alex's enraged shouts and pounding footsteps behind him as he raced towards the stairwell. Heart pounding and legs burning, Jake managed to make it outside the building, where he frantically dialed 911. Police arrived on the scene within minutes, swarming the apartment complex in search of Alex. Jake, still shaken by the harrowing encounter, provided them with a detailed description of his roommate and his last known whereabouts. After an intense search, the police found Alex hiding in a nearby alley, clutching a rusted scalpel in his hand. He was arrested and taken into custody, where he was later charged with multiple counts of murder, linking him to the gruesome crimes Jake had discovered in the newspaper clippings. With Alex behind bars, the weight of fear and paranoia finally lifted from Jake's shoulders. He was hailed as a local hero for his role in unmasking the dangerous killer, but he couldn't shake the lingering trauma of his close encounter with evil. Determined to put the nightmare behind him, Jake moved out of the apartment and found a new place to live. He was cautious about finding a new roommate, opting to live alone for the time being. As he unpacked his belongings in his new home, he found a small box that he didn't recognize. With trepidation, he opened it, only to find a note from Laura. It read, "You survived something terrifying, and I know it won't be easy to forget. But remember, you're stronger than you think, and you have friends who care about you. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm just a phone call away." Jake smiled, realizing that despite the horrors he had faced, he had emerged stronger and more resilient. He was grateful for the support of friends like Laura, who had stood by his side throughout the ordeal. As he settled into his new life, Jake vowed never to forget the lessons he had learned during his time with Alex. He knew that evil could lurk behind the most unsuspecting faces, and that trust and intuition were invaluable tools in the face of danger. The chilling tale of the Craigslist roommate would remain etched in his memory forever, a stark reminder of the darkness that sometimes hides in plain sight. 5. It It was a typical Saturday night, and Emily was bored out of her mind. She had already binge-watched every show on Netflix and couldn't find anything interesting to do. That's when she remembered Craigslist, the website that promised endless possibilities. As she scrolled through the site, she stumbled upon a job posting that caught her attention. House-sitting opportunity for a wealthy couple going out of town for the weekend. It seemed like an easy way to make some quick cash, so Emily quickly applied. The following day, she received a call from the couple who were delighted to have her as their house sitter. Emily couldn't believe her luck. It was a beautiful mansion located on the outskirts of the city, and they were offering her a significant amount of money for the weekend. She eagerly accepted the offer and set off to the mansion. As she pulled up to the house, Emily couldn't help but feel uneasy. The mansion was isolated and located deep in the woods, making her feel isolated from the rest of the world. The air was tense, and she could hear the leaves rustling from the trees. Emily dismissed her fears, reminding herself that she was getting paid a lot of money to do nothing but relax and watch TV. She entered the mansion, and to her surprise, it was even more beautiful than she had imagined. The rooms were spacious, the furniture was lavish, and the house was filled with expensive art pieces. As Emily began to explore the mansion, she noticed that something felt off. The atmosphere was too quiet and almost eerie. The furniture had dust accumulated, and the food in the kitchen was spoiled, indicating that the owners hadn't been around in a while. She tried to ignore the unsettling feeling that crept up on her and focused on the positive aspects of her temporary stay. As the night settled in, Emily retired to her room and snuggled up in bed with a book. She could hear the sounds of the house settling down for the night, the old wooden floors creaking and the windows rattling in the wind. It was a peaceful feeling, but something made her uneasy. Just as she was about to drift off to sleep, she heard a knock at the door. Emily sat up, confused. Who could be knocking at the door at this hour? She made her way to the front door and hesitantly peered through the peephole. A figure stood outside, dressed in black and wearing a ski mask. Emily's heart began to race, and she backed away from the door. She heard the person fiddling with the lock, trying to get inside. She could feel the terror taking over her, and she knew she had to do something quickly. Emily was frozen with fear as the intruder continued to try and break into the mansion. She couldn't call the police because she had no phone service, and the mansion was located too far from the city. She knew that she had to stay calm and find a way to protect herself. She quickly made her way to the bedroom and locked the door, barricading it with a dresser. She heard the intruder making his way through the house, opening doors and searching for something. She could hear his footsteps getting closer and closer, and her heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear herself think. She knew that if the intruder got into her room, she would be helpless. Suddenly, the intruder stopped outside her door. Emily held her breath, afraid to make a sound. The doorknob began to turn, and Emily knew she had to act quickly. She grabbed the lamp on the bedside table and prepared to defend herself. As the door swung open, Emily swung the lamp with all her might, hitting the intruder on the head. He stumbled back, and Emily seized the opportunity to escape. She ran down the hallway, hoping to find a phone or a way out of the mansion. But the intruder was fast, and he quickly caught up to her. He tackled her to the ground, and Emily could feel his hot breath on her neck. She tried to fight back, but he was too strong. He pinned her down and held a knife to her throat, threatening to kill her if she didn't cooperate. Emily was terrified, and she knew that she had to come up with a plan to escape. She tried to reason with the intruder, offering him anything he wanted if he would let her go, but he wasn't interested in negotiating. As the hours passed, Emily was subjected to torture and unspeakable horrors. The intruder revealed that he had been hired by the couple who owned the mansion to eliminate her. They had lured her in with the house-sitting job, intending to use her as a sacrifice for their twisted rituals. Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. How could someone be so cruel, so heartless? She begged for her life, but the intruder just laughed in her face, enjoying her terror. Emily was in a state of shock, unable to comprehend the horror that had befallen her. She had been lured into the mansion by a seemingly innocent job offer, only to find herself in the clutches of a deranged couple and their hired assassin. But despite the odds, Emily refused to give up. She knew that she had to escape, no matter what it took. She bided her time, waiting for the right moment to make her move. One night, as the couple and the intruder were distracted, Emily made a break for it. She ran through the mansion, dodging obstacles and making her way towards the front door. She could hear the sound of footsteps behind her, but she didn't look back. She knew that she had to keep going. As she reached the front door, she realized that it was locked. She searched for the key, but it was nowhere to be found. She could hear the intruder getting closer, and she knew that she was running out of time. Just as she was about to give up hope, she noticed a small window near the ceiling. It was her only chance. She grabbed a nearby chair and climbed up to the window, forcing it open. She could hear the intruder getting closer, but she didn't hesitate. She climbed out of the window, dropping to the ground below. She landed hard, but she didn't feel the pain. She was free. She ran through the woods, not stopping until she reached the nearest town. She stumbled into a gas station, covered in dirt and blood, and begged for help. The police were called, and they quickly made their way to the mansion. What they found inside was nothing short of a nightmare. The couple and the intruder had been performing twisted rituals in the mansion, using innocent victims like Emily as sacrifices. They had been operating under the radar for years, and no one had suspected a thing. Thanks to Emily's bravery and quick thinking, the couple and the intruder were apprehended and brought to justice. Emily went through extensive therapy to recover from her trauma, but she emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. As for the mansion, it remained empty and abandoned, a dark reminder of the horrors that had taken place within its walls. Emily never forgot what had happened to her, but she refused to let it define her. She lived her life to the fullest, always remembering to be cautious but never letting fear control her. Thank you for joining us for these 3 true and bone-chilling Craigslist horror stories. We hope that you have been left with goosebumps and a lingering sense of unease. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to our channel for more true and terrifying tales that will keep you up at night. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when we upload a new video. We appreciate your support and love hearing your feedback in the comments. If you have a personal experience with a scary Craigslist encounter, we want to hear from you. Remember to be cautious when using online marketplaces and never let your guard down. Thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, sweet dreams or perhaps nightmares.